Today's topic is bar graphs. This is going to be very useful for some of us as we work with our survey data that we are collecting in class. Let's go ahead and get our page set up with our vertical and horizontal lines and put our header in the top right corner with today's date and topic, which is bar graphs. The essential question for today is, what is a bar graph and how do we create it? Let's write that at the top as well. Like a line plot, a bar graph is a visual representation of data. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. It's very similar to a line plot with a few small differences. Instead of having X's or symbols that tell us how many times a particular value is seen in the data, we use a bar, and the height of the bar tells us the frequency. You've probably seen bar graphs before. I'm going to sketch kind of an empty bar graph without any real data just to show you the different parts of the bar graph and how it's the same or different from a line plot. So let me just put a quick sketch of a bar graph up. The horizontal line of a bar graph is similar to that of a line plot. So this still represents a number line and it's consistently marked all the way across. Also, like the line plot, it needs to have a label. Okay. Also similar to a line plot is that the fact that this has a title. Our graphs always have to have a title. What's different about a bar graph, though, is that there's also this vertical line, right? This vertical line of the bar graph is what tells us the frequency of each response in our survey or in the data that we're collecting. That is, how many times people gave a particular answer. Just like the horizontal line, it needs to be consistent in scale. Here I just counted by ones, right? Depending on your size of your survey responses, you might have a scale that counts by ones or by twos or fives or even tens. We need to label this too, and I always tend to label it with the word frequency, telling us how often a survey result is seen. Right now, this bar graph doesn't have any bars. I'm going to make an example. I'm going to give you a table of data, and I'm going to turn it into a bar graph so you can see what it looks like when we actually build it with the bars. This table has a survey where I asked 20 teachers how many children they have. Right? So these are the results listed in the table. I can see, for example, that there were 6 teachers who told me that they didn't have any kids at home. Right? There was 1 teacher who said that they had 7 children. Let's use this data to make a bar graph. I need a little more space than I have on my paper, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my page. You have your table recorded so you can follow along with the data that you have in your notes, right? And you can keep going right on whatever page it is that you have open in front of you as long as you have space. But I'm going to go ahead and turn my page. Just like the line plot, I'm going to start with my number line. I know my lowest and highest numbers were 0 and 7. So I need to count from 0 to 7 consistently. I'm actually going to leave a space in between each number. I'll show you why when I make my bars, but I'm going to go ahead and fill in 0 to 7 with a little space in between each number. I need to label my horizontal line, and I'm going to just call this the number of kids. On the left-hand side, I need to draw a line as well, a vertical line. The mode was 0. More people answered 0 than any other answer. 6 people said they had 0 kids. So as I make my vertical line, I need to be sure that it goes up as high as 6. So I'm just going to go from 0 to 6, counting consistently by ones. I need to give this side a label as well. Everything gets labeled on a graph. So I'm going to label this side frequency because this tells me how many times a particular answer was given. I'm just going to write frequency right along the side. And of course, no graph is complete without a title. I'm going to go ahead and just call this graph Teachers and Their Children. Now I'm ready to put in my data. In a line plot, we used a symbol, maybe an X or a dot, to represent each result or piece of data that we had. This time we're going to draw bars that are as high as the number they represent. For 0 kids, there were 6 people who said they had 0 kids. I need to record a frequency of 6. By doing so, I can quickly glance at my graph now and say, oh, there were 6 people who have 0 kids. For one child, I need to record a frequency of 5. Notice when I do this that I'm going to leave a space in between the two bars. In a bar graph, bars are separated from each other to highlight the fact that the data is distinct. Now I'm going to pause for a minute and continue to put in the rest of my data. You can go ahead and pause too and try entering the data yourself before seeing what I've done, and we can see how we compare. Take a look at your bar graph. Does it look like mine? Does it have a title and labels and a nice consistent scale? Do the bars have spaces in between to show that they are distinct? And does each bar represent the number of times a particular answer was given? If so, then you just made a complete bar graph. So now let's just check in that we remember our essential question. Did we learn what a bar graph was? And do we know how to make it? If not, go ahead and rewatch any parts that might have been confusing for you, and we'll talk about it again together in class.